So how exactly can that risk be mitigated? A multi-party group of parliamentarians is trying to find out. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel Garner and Senator Colin Deacon with the Independent Senators Group have launched the Canadian Parliamentary Caucus on Emerging Technology. They're with us live in studio now. Hi to both of you. Really nice to see you. Thank you for making the time. I'm super interested in this issue. I was speaking with Professor Bengio that kind of like set off a lot of different reactions, I think, among people watching. Ms. Rempel Garner, I want to start with you because you wrote this week about this like digital doppelganger, basically, and how you read about the creation of it, and I think you wrote a chill went down your spine. Why is that?
You know, the first time a chill went down my spine was last December, in the week that followed the mass deployment of ChatGPT, which is based on a technology that is a real game changer called large language models. And what this technology does is allow anybody who essentially has an online presence, be it text messages or emails or history of speeches, to be able to put or sideload themselves into AI format, into an AI. This isn't old school stuff. This is the ability to parse language, act in your mannerisms. And we don't really have rules on how that happens or who can do that. And when you think about the impacts that that has, and this technology is available right now on misinformation, on our democratic institutions, on scams. Like, can you imagine if somebody created a doppelganger of you and used it to call your parents or grandparents to ask for money? These are real things. So there's a lot of stuff in the news this week, as you just talked about these larger existential risks. And those are important for us to look at. But we also have to look at the fact that the game has massively changed, and Senator Deacon and I are trying to do something about that.
Yeah, I think the point is really well taken, Senator Deacon, that there's kind of two prongs to the risks, right? And most of the experts will say this too, right? There's the long-term, more existential crisis, but then there's the very near-term potential risk to democracy, potential risk to our own safety, all that kind of, the kinds of stuff that Ms. Rempel Garner laid out. What kind of gap exists, do you think, in trying to mitigate that risk or regulate it?
We regulate in decades, not in months. And this technology is moving so quickly that we've got to find new ways of making sure we capture opportunity, not just mitigate risk, but capture opportunity, because there's tremendous opportunity in every corner of society and the economy thanks to AI. But there's also we're seeing enormous risk to individuals, to democracy, to financial stability. Rumors can be made and spread very quickly. The White House has got a strategy in place right now to manage deep fakes because they're already being seeing an awful lot of concern being raised. So the reality is we need a faster model to start to adjust.
The interesting thing to me, Ms. Rempel Garner, is, for example, deep fakes, right? The more you read about AI, you realize deepfakes is like last year's problem, 100%. Right? And that next year's problem is coming as soon as tomorrow. Like, I've never seen anything sort of evolve so quickly before our eyes. And I wonder how difficult you think that might be for government, because the one thing it's not known for is moving fast.
You've really hit the nail on the head here. The pace of change that we're seeing with this technology, and because there wasn't guardrails or standards around how and when these technologies could be deployed on such a large scale, really behooves us, as Senator Deacon alluded to move faster than the normal speed of government. You know, as an optimist, because there's a lot of people who are talking from a very pessimistic perspective here on the ability of government to meet this change. I think one of the big things that we have going for us is that this territory hasn't yet devolved into sort of really rigid partisan positions. And I think that there's a lot of agreement among parliamentarians of all stripes that we need to educate ourselves and then do something about it to both, as Colin talks about, harness the benefits, but also put guardrails in place. And that's why we've put this caucus together, so that we're not, we're going into the summer constituency recess, that we're not waiting 4 months for parliamentarians to learn about the scenarios that are happening, to understand the risks, the opportunities, but also what the role of government can be. And that the public actually has an opportunity to interface with us in hopefully a nonpartisan, collaborative way.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and pick up on that, Senator Deacon, I think, and I'd love to know your view on this, that's important because there's going to need to be some buy-in, right? There's a lot of people who hear increased government regulation and take that immediately as a negative, in some instances for good reason, right? But in this case, really at this point, regulation on deployment, as Ms. Rempel Garner pointed out, is kind of a necessity. There's a consensus around that. What do you say to people who are kind of worried about the prospect of that, because regulation hasn't always worked out in the past?
I'm a real believer that we can use a lot of lessons from standards, certifications, and codes of practice, which can be developed by amongst stakeholders with government at the table, but government using those as a way to move regulation in a more agile manner and a more rapid manner, and to make sure.
What does that mean in layman's terms? Can I ask?
In layman's terms, what it means is a standard is ISO. Everybody knows about ISO 9000 standards, and their businesses do things the same way. It's a process that's defined. You write out what your process is. You write out what the process is supposed to achieve. It's all clearly defined. Everybody follows the same process. And then you get a USB plug that goes from computer to computer to computer. That's based on a standard. So that is one example, but certification is a stamp of approval. Somebody's been audited to make sure that they conform with those standards. And so that gives, if you see a certification on something,
right,
it says, okay, we can trust it. And a lot of this can happen outside of government, but with the support of government, and much, much, much faster and more iterative and more agile than government ever could move.
Right. Last word to you, Ms. Rempel Garner. I see you nodding.
Yeah, no, agreed. So just for somebody who's watching, this is like, as Colin was saying, we have international standards for aviation, right? Airlines around the world all have to adhere to certain ways of operating practice so that planes don't fall out of the sky. There's a lot of people who are saying we could do the same thing with AI. Same thing goes for just collaborating with other countries. And again, just to be optimistic, I think that there's a lot of goodwill around the world, especially in the innovation community. People who are actually inventing this stuff to say, hey, we've got to get this right. Even looking at a system like clinical trials for pharmaceuticals, why can't we do this with AI? Why can't we test things before we deploy them? So I'm pleased to say that we've got a group of really talented parliamentarians from all political stripe working on this issue, and we'll have a lot more to say to the public and to you in coming months.
I look forward to checking in again. Thank you very much,
Thanks.
both of you, for making the time. Michelle Rempel Garner and Senator Colin Deacon.